New York City. It has a lot of famous nicknames, and it's now famously associated with this piece of produce. But have you ever asked yourself, why? Well, if you haven't, I bet you are now. So let's take a look back. Thanks to this dedicated entomologist, Barry Popick, we know the earliest Big Apple reference dates back to 1909 in a book called The Wayfarer. In it, the author uses the phrase as more of a metaphor than a proper name. He writes, Kansas is apt to see New York a greedy city. It inclines to think that the Big Apple gets a disproportionate share of the national sap. But don't feel too bad for Kansas. They're still getting some of the sap. And if I had to guess, most of it resides in the town called Manhattan, which is known as the Little Apple, with a population of 54,000. From there, we jump to 1921 and sports writer John J. Fitzgerald, whose horse racing column was named Around the Big Apple. This phrase became a common reference in this era for the bigger horse races that took place in and around the New York region, mainly because the accolades and overall payouts were more fruitful than smaller races. Fruitful, it's a produce joke. Okay, moving on. In the 30s and 40s, the Big Apple was a popular nickname for New York City used by several jazz musicians, which made it more mainstream. But it wasn't until the 1970s when Charles Gillette and the New York Convention and Visitors Bureau revived the nickname that the Big Apple stuck. The goal was to rebrand the city and boost tourism using bright red apples to invoke clean, friendly imagery, battling the dirty, dingy, and dangerous reputation the city had. Seems like the Big Apple really struck a chord with New Yorkers. Last but not least, the official state fruit of New York is the kumquat. No, I'm just kidding. It's the apple. That would have been ridiculous.